Yo, 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 what is going on, CoD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder, and today I thought it would be good to talk about this community pitchfork-like topic, which is the latest village-related changes that the CoD team announced this morning for November 15th. So we're going to read through this. I'm going to share with you some community responses and feedback, and then I'm going to share with you my thoughts on what I think could be done going forward. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us up because it helps out a lot. So let's start with, after the latest update, we received player feedback on the village rule changes. Previously, as the seasons moved forward, we observed that requiring alliances to connect villages via roads conflicts with the development of alliance territories under the restriction of maximum alliance road length. Essentially, because you can only build so much road, you can only connect to so many villages, and or may opt to limit the amount of road length to min-max village connection, and then reducing cost of flags for future flagging when you get to later zones, right? We'll get to some of that as we continue. Even though we had attempted to address this issue in previous patches by increasing the maximum road length, which, to be fair, I believe they've only done twice. I know at least once with the recent, and I feel like they might have done this before, but it's not as though they've done this a lot. Alliance leaders still tended to prioritize building alliance towers over connecting passing villages. This has led to an overall low utilization of villages. Alliances often had to carefully plan their limited road lengths or use smaller alliances specifically to connect villages. And this goes into one of the things I think I had forgot to mention in this morning's video, is that oftentimes you will see alliances using shells or other alliances within a warband or within the kingdom to connect to buffs. And then that way, during certain periods, like let's say, for example, you want to have, one alliance that maybe has village buffs that are more kind of PvP or PvE, or maybe one alliance focuses on having maybe a higher percentage of buffs than another one, or maybe one alliance has the majority of these specific types of buffs versus others. You might switch alliances to utilize different buffs. And so they talk about this has led to an overall low utilization of villages. Well, the other aspect that we had just alluded to is that when you are fighting in KvK, your alliances may often prioritize having low overall total flags built so they can reduce the amount of RSS it costs to build flags, therefore being able to maximize their storehouse or better utilize their storehouse capacity, so that way they can build more overall flags and then being able to do that faster at the end of the day. So this will help them advance into zones and get more of a foothold in there, or potentially allow for them to reach something like a choke point first before another alliance, or a strategic point on the map in that new zone. And so again, it makes sense on why they would not have flags connecting to every single village or to the majority of villages in addition to having territory, right? They would probably min-max and or just only go after villages that they would probably deem important. An example is, if you're a PvP fighting alliance, you're probably not going to go for villages that are something maybe like non-elixir, non-healing, something that isn't really going to be more PvP related, just as an example. Next one. The situation did not align with our design expectations, where players only need to do a bit of planning in expanding their alliance territory to gain access to all villages along the way, giving them more chances to raid and capture villages with their preferred buffs to improve the gameplay experience. Therefore, we adjusted relevant rules so that players can now raid villages without connecting them to alliance roads. Personally, it's funny because I feel myself like I'm kind of torn here a little bit, because on one end, I have no problem with the alliances connecting their territory to villages in order to then start applying them or allow for people to then start getting them in the alliance or to rotate the buffs, etc., right, for them to be active, versus and I don't know how to say versus, but just the other side, which is like, okay, well now you don't have to connect the roads to it, right? You just have to go raid it, capture it, and then the people in the alliance can go ahead and grab it. I'm kind of okay either way. Like I don't really see a big challenge. However, if you are going to have roads that connect, then just increase. I would argue just maybe increase the road length a little bit more, and or maybe potentially consider reducing the RSS cost. However, will that really be the end-all solution to something like that? Because then people will just kind of min-max it more so they can build more overall flags. It's, again, you can kind of go back and forth a bit there. Let's continue. However, this change, the total number of villages that players can occupy increased significantly. I'm imagining this is because of being able to utilize multiple shells and multiple alliances to be able to grab a lot more villages. In addition to now not needing to connect roads to them, you should be able to get more villages overall as well. We fear that as a result, allowing players to continue sharing buffs from villages occupied by other alliances could lead to the best village buffs being owned by only a handful of players. To make sure the game is balanced and fair to play overall, we have also modified the village rule in the latest patch so that players can no longer share buffs from other alliances' villages. Thus, they can be fully dedicated to the development of their own alliances. We hope that the changes provide players with more options and freedom in village-related gameplay and increase the total number of players who enjoy the best village buffs. So, there's a lot there. However, one of the things I want to focus on is where they blatantly basically come out and say the best village buffs being owned by only a handful of players. So, keep in mind that you caused this situation. Let's be very clear here. Because if you remember, back in the day, before KVK was introduced, and when the village system was very simple, and it was actually preferred more often by the majority of players in the community versus how it is now. Because back then it was pretty simple. It was just, look, if your alliance connected to the village, every single member in the alliance got the buff. And that was it. Nobody had to fight over who was going to be able to get this because this tier level of village had this amount of spots versus a lower or higher amount of spots for a higher or lower level village. It was none of that. You didn't even have to raid the villages. Now, I will say this. The challenge is that the system has just become too convoluted. And I'm going to get to what I think could be some potential solutions. But let's listen and take a little read here from the community. So I want to read this from Nath, and I hope Nath doesn't mind because I grabbed this off of a different Discord. But again, just only showing this. So he says, just saw the announcement about the village system. This is not what was explained in the patch notes. Someone dropped the ball here big time. Also, most players just dislike this system because of all the trouble, and yet devs manage to make it more complicated by only allowing the designated alliance to have the buffs. If players can't access other alliances for the village buffs, just let all players have the buffs of their alliances villages, please. Make it simple and plain for everyone. This is how it used to be, right? Just flat out before they did the change. I think someone had explained it to me where it's like you have it for everyone in one set, whether it's Home Kingdom or KVK, but then in the other set you have to go and grab them. So again, regardless of which one it is and or if it's just different than that, again, I'm going to give you what I just feel that it should be, but this is what Nothing said. Now, Pasta had said something here where it says, bring back the ability to share villages between alliances. Villages are placed all over the map in useless areas. There is an advantage to having less towers since they cost less to build. We talked about that when pushing into a zone. The outcome of this village change means villages will be further underutilized because you will not connect them via territory since you need to save RSS for the next zone. That is the reason shells, that we alluded to, are used since you don't want to be inefficient about towers in the main fighting alliance. Here's another post from Hunt saying, so you say low utilization of villages is why you made it so you don't have to connect, but then stopped people being able to get buffs from warband villages. Makes no sense as it constrains people's abilities to move between warband alliances during fighting due to loss of buffs. Revert this change. And then I wanted to, so this is a little bit smaller, but a couple people had meant, Happy Henry says, anyone else think the village changes are out of touch? We have Shaw, who said, I find it hilariously hypocritical that they are letting us share everything with Warband now, except villages. We have Shaw saying, again, it's hypocritical. They're building up everything to be available to Warband so you can jump shells to fight, but then they say we can't keep village buffs. And I think this is where now it kind of gets, and let me just kind of show you in game, right? So let's talk about the elephant in the room first and foremost when it comes to alliance management. And we talked about this in the video this morning, is that alliance management is the crux, it's the crutch, if you will, of a kingdom builder game itself. Developers should value alliance management teams and the efficiency of tools and the way that they plan and prep and essentially how they utilize their alliance to create better experiences for their players. And I say all of this because there is a incredibly high and unnecessary level of stress that comes with when you have to then allocate village spots to players in your alliance when the amount of occupation spots in villages is lower than the total amount of alliance members that you have. That part makes no sense to me at all. You are basically creating an internal competition within the alliance that the management team has to now go out of their way to organize, to structure, to communicate. That's time, that's resources, that's unnecessary actions that they have to go out there. And then also the potential strife that can be created and the internal drama that can be created from this. And we've already seen this happen a number of times where some players have left alliances, some players have caused drama, some players have attacked other players just so they can get a spot at it. I mean, again, there's been reports of this happening for a while now. Now, this isn't to say that this is, off the rails and the majority of people are doing this across the community. But these still should not be dismissed. The fact is that this is creating a completely unnecessary and incredibly stressful situation for alliance management teams that then trickles down and affects the players, or can affect the players on a day-to-day basis. So I'm so confused here, right? Because to me, like I said before, the easy solution I view is you either make it so that when an alliance captures a village. Now, if you still want to have the raid feature and the raid mechanic, you want to do something fun that maybe gets players to come together in the alliance and you guys go do some kind of cool mini game or massive behemoth raid on the village to get it, whatever it may be. Totally fine with that. However, if the village is captured, at this point, that is when everyone in the alliance, so option A for me is everyone in the alliance should have the village. Everyone in the alliance should get access to the village buff. There shouldn't be this thing where individuals have to go out and attack the village, etc., so they can go ahead and be an occupier, if you will, right? Now, the second option they could potentially do is where maybe you allow everyone in the warband to take advantage of the villages. And I say this because you have to think about it like when you're in war, at least maybe on the KVK map per se, is when you're there and you are advancing on territory and you're removing other territory. If you go and capture a village now with a warband, that's a resource that your enemy had that you now have. So again, I could see it just affecting that alliance, but I could also see it applying warband wide to up to the 4 alliances in the warband, and that everyone gets to reap those village buffs. I mean, the thing is that you then also have to think about this dynamic of this is a kingdom builder, right? You've created a warband system so that way more than just one alliance can be engaged within a kingdom. You've gone from essentially in the beginning of the game to having a little bit more of an alliance-focused approach on how you promoted and advertised the game to now having a little bit more of a kingdom builder approach with the warband creation and with other features that have been added. So again, why not lean into that and just make it so much easier, right? If you want to make the capture, you want to maybe make the maintenance of it be some kind of engaged action, totally fine. But really simplify and dumb this down for people so that way you don't create what I feel is just an incredible level of unnecessary emotional damage and stress to the management teams, and I'm sure probably to the players. So, you have to think about, like, if you're giving a player, like, if you have a lot of, if let's say every player in your alliance is deserving of, or could be deserving of a particular village, you're basically forcing the management teams to have to tell a number of people no and then a number of people yes. And so, again, it's just from a player side, from a human and player psychological standpoint, I just don't see how that is like the hill that we're trying to die on. It's like, oh yeah, that's what we're going with, and we're not thinking, and maybe we're not thinking about all these other factors that go in to such a decision and such a feature that's in the game. So listen, man, I'm with the other people that have their pitchforks up. And this isn't like, oh my God, what a bad game design. It's nothing like that. This is just simply looking at the feature objectively from outside the window in and saying, okay, we've had this around for a while now. A number of people, myself included, already felt that this was probably the road that it was going to go down when those changes and early introductions were provided. And it is. And I think it's okay to then say, all right, well, look, it's just not working for what the community and really for what would be a healthier state of the game. Why not just simplify this, move on to the next thing, put our resources into investing into another area? So listen, those are my thoughts on it. Whether you agree or disagree, I would love to hear what you think about the village system. Would you like to see it just, again, universal across Home Kingdom, KVK, where if your alliance captures it, every member in your alliance gets it? When you're in KVK, if an alliance captures it in your warband, every alliance in the warband gets it, and it's just a universal buff? Do you think maybe there should be a different way to approach it? Again, I really would love to hear what some of you have to say. Let me know in the comments below. That's going to be it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.